today we're working on the Miata once again. Today we're going to do a how-to video on how to install your Tein coilovers on your NB Miata. So we got our basic package here. This is basically the cheapest package that Tein makes for the Miata. So it is your easy basic coilover system. The tools we're going to use today, starting for now at least to get the fronts off, is we're going to use your 14 millimeter deep well. We're going to use a 17 millimeter socket wrench and a 17 on the impact to get the bottom of the stock shock off. So remember, when you're doing this, it's always easiest to do it on a lift, but you can always do it on jack stands in your garage. We're obviously going to do it on our lift because that makes it way easier. So we're going to keep it at this level so that we can do the bottom side first, stand up, and then pull the top off so we can just drop that stock shock and strut mount out. So let's get started with the front. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start by taking off the bottom bolt here on the shock. So I'm going to put the socket on one side with the impact and get it with the wrench on the other. And I already have it loose, so it should be easy. I can just get it off. All right. So now the hard part is we're going to have to pop that back out, and because there's going to be weight on it from the spring and everything else. So we're going to pop that off with a hammer. Okay, so we're just going to use a big screwdriver here and a rubber mallet. Just give it a few taps. And you might have to pry it from one side or the other. That's why we like the big screwdrivers and the pry bars. Alright, so we got that one out. Make sure don't lose your nut. I like to put them back together. That way you don't lose them, because it's always going to take a hot minute. So this is where your 14 millimeter comes in handy. We're just going to take off that nut, and it should drop the shock down. We have a little bit of an issue. The shock goes down, but it doesn't come out. So what we have to do is we're going to remove the upper A-arm right here. Now that is a 21 millimeter socket on this back side, and when we loosened it, it dropped down a little more. So we're going to go ahead and pull it all the way out and then slide it this way, which will allow this whole unit to drop down further, and then we'll be able to remove this. So it's not necessarily very tight, but you do have to have the other side being held onto with a crescent wrench. So this is a two-handed process, or have somebody operate the other end. But you do at least need it held. So if you brace it there, you don't have to hold it up. And then you can just keep taking it off little by little. Once you get it loose enough, go ahead and finish it off with your fingers. Take off your nut, your washer, and then your big washer, set them aside. Then you're going to start popping this out. We went ahead and shoved that bolt all the way out. You can see it over here. So now I'm going to hold on here and I'm going to pop this off. Like so. It'll lean down and out. There you go. Out comes your front strut. So now that we have that piece off, we're going to go ahead and repeat the process on the other side. So on this side, after doing the other side, I'm going to start off by popping the sway bar off. As per usual, dropping the nut. Always put those nuts back on every time. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, we're going to actually go ahead and pop the bottom one out next. Taking out that bottom bolt using that, what was this, a 21? 17, excuse me, 17. So remember guys, now we're gonna use our 21mm in this crescent, and we're gonna take this A-arm bolt out. And once that's out, then we'll be able to drop the top and the whole thing will just fall apart. So guys, we already got the bottom A-arm off and we got the shock bolt out of the bottom. So as soon as we pull these two, it should drop down. So now we have everything unhooked. The A-arm's unhooked, the bottom of the shock is unhooked, and we unhooked it from the two bolts at the top. So a little push down, it'll start sliding out. You can pop it out of the bottom. There we go. Okay guys, so right now we're going to take off the top hat because we have to put it on over there. So we went ahead and put on a spring compressor on one side just to be safer. And I know you're like, oh, that's not safe, but it's still safer than not having one because we still have to get this off. So just always be careful when you're doing this, guys. It's probably going to pop off. Now we could use a fancy machine, but we really want to show how most of you guys are going to do this. And this is how most of you guys are going to do it. So the top hat is what we wanted, and now we can loosen the spring. So that is your completely disassembled front strut now. With your stock shock, spring, and the top hat is what we're keeping. Okay guys, so we went ahead and we installed exactly how it is stock back onto the top of that coilover. And so then we did our pre-tension how we want. We have about an inch right there. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna start this one at the same spot. So we're gonna set them side by side and basically try and line them up equally. I think I have them pretty close, something like that. I'm going to tighten this one up. I'm actually going to lock that one in place, guys. Now the cool thing that I really like about these is that they actually give you your coil spanner wrenches, which is really nice. Because some places charge you extra to get those. So now we got both those set up. They're virtually in an identical spot here. So we're going to go ahead and disassemble this top hat right here and assemble it back on here, and we'll show you how we did that. Okay guys, so we're going to set up the coilover now. So this is how it comes from Tein, but actually technically that's not on. It's going to come with all that. We slid these on just because anyone can do that one. So we're just going to pull the nut off the top. Nice and simple. Okay. Pull those washers off. Put our spring back on. Okay. Make sure right there that notch is lined up. That's very important. That's what locks it into place. Next going on is that piece. That's what actually touches your spring and holds it down for everybody. So we're not really going to use these spacers. We didn't really have a need when we did it this way. So pretty simply, the big washer goes on. Then you're going to put this black rubber piece on, that bushing. Then the metal cap, that's going to go on next. Then the actual top hat itself is going to go on. Then we're going to put on the other rubber bushing, followed by another top hat, and finally, our nut. And we're gonna start screwing that down. Now it's usually either set to stand it upright. So then you can start tightening it down, and you want it down there about 1 inch to 1/2 inch. So we're gonna compress it down on there. Now if it starts doing that and won't let you turn, you can either lower your settings here, but I don't like to do that. So what we can do is we can actually grab it, because they have the sides flattened so you can. So we're gonna grab another wrench so that we can grab that on the top and we can keep tightening this down. So pretty simply, we're gonna put that ratcheting socket wrench on there and slide the crescent onto the top and tighten her down. And then we can just keep cranking it down till we're at our desired height. Looking at it, I think I want just a tad bit more. Okay, so now that we got that one on, we're going to put our final nut on. Nice and easy. And we will tighten that one down right on top of our other nut, and that'll just help lock everything in place. Alrighty, so these two coilovers right here are ready to actually go in the car. So we're going to go ahead and start the mounting process. Okay guys, so pretty easy. You're going to literally slide it through your upper A-arm that's all over the place. And then you're just going to slide it up and into your hole. Now I'm just going to put them on loose so we still have some movement and some room to wiggle things about. So now guys, back down on this end, we got to start connecting things back up. First off is going to be the A-arm. Okay. Now this is going to be a halfway tricky but not entirely terrible thing, because everything moves in a couple directions. So if you got a buddy or another jack, that's the way to do it, but I'm basically going to set it on my knees so that I got the height done, and then wiggle it until I can get it kind of on there. So now we're going to start threading our needle back on. Should go through, if lined up, pretty easy. So it's back on, and like that, it sticks out the other side. Okay guys, so we already just pushed that all the way through, so when you put it back on, big washer, little washer, nut. Now these can get kind of annoying because they are big, they are always in the way. No matter what you're doing, it hits something. So if you're doing this by yourself, take your time, have a drink, have a couple of tools standing by, and just know it's going to take a hot minute to put it back together, because it's going to take a hot minute to put it back together. And there's nothing really wrong with that. You can't fit your power tools in there necessarily, so you just got to do it by hand and cinch it back up tight. Once that one's on tight, we're going to lift the A-arm, and then we're going to position the bottom of the shock and slide our last bolt through the bottom. So guys, you can see we're using a jack underneath it to jack it up so that we can slowly slide the shock into its position. This is the easiest way to do it. Now I know we're using a lift and this big mechanism right here, but you can do the same thing at home with your small jack. It doesn't have to be a big crazy one like this. It's still easily doable, and it's the same principle. It just helps everything line up, because see, that's all we did was jack it up to that point so that you can easily slide the bolt in. So last bit to actually hook up, we're going to hook up the sway bar once more, and then we're going to just start tightening everything that we just mounted down. So it's all put together loose, and we did have to loosen this a tad bit to get that bolt out. So again, we're going to literally tighten everything. We already tightened this one, so we're going to tighten the bottom shock We're going to tighten this, and then we're going to tighten the top of the coilover, and then we'll be good. So last thing on this side, we're going to take that 14 millimeter and tighten these ones up. There we go. So take a look down and under. You can see it is fully assembled and fully tightened. Everything on it is looking good. So this side is technically ready for us to throw a wheel on and drop it back down. But we're going to do all of them first before we put the wheels back on. So we're going to go ahead and put the other side on now. Side, guys, fully put together coilover. Butt of it in through the hole in the A-arm. And it's probably going to come back out, but we're going to stick it up and through that hole so that we can go ahead and put our nuts. And on this side, we have this piece. Don't forget that. Drop it down and on. And then we'll finger tight only our nuts here. And again, finger tight because we want to wiggle everything around below it. So we'll figure it out. So we'll finish up, guys, by tightening these last two. Our coilovers are done. Both sides of the car. All we have to do now is go ahead and put the wheels on, drop it down once we do the rears, and then we can check the ride height and adjust the ride height from there. Because other than that, these are good to go. Let's get ready to do the rear coilovers now. We're going to be using a 17 millimeter socket for the bottom of the shock. We're going to take that off first. Got a breaker bar because they're pretty tight. Once we get this one off, we're going to go ahead and do the bolt that is on the top of the A-arm mount here on the top. Pull that out. That way it can lean out. And then we'll drop the car down and pull the 1 or 2 nuts that hold the top of the coilover in. Okay guys, this top bolt is a 14. You're going to want one on either side of it so you can get the nut free while at the same time getting the other side held.
I can figure something out.
Yeah, this word's easy. So the last 2 bolts we have are the top mountain bolts for the shock. They are behind this back panel here. We can go ahead and rip these off. Try to the side, move the carpet, and there's one there and there. Those are both 14 millimeter sockets, so we'll go ahead and pull them off. Sure not to lose them. Okay, so now you can see our shock is loose. We're going to go ahead, and since this is out, we can bend it down a little bit. What we're going to have to do is unhook our rear sway bar once more. So we'll do that real quick. So this is a 14 millimeter once again, guys. We'll pull it off. And we'll give some upward movement, and then you see this drops low enough that we can easily remove our shock and coil. So the driver's side rear, a little bit different, because come on in. Once we remove this back, you see we can't just get back there. Got a couple 10mm bolts we got to pull out. So we're going to pull this stuff out of the way. And we're going to get these three, I believe they're 10mm, out of the way to remove this shield. Then this thing will pop out of the way. And you see why that's there now. This is our fuel inlet that pops up beside the trunk. So we got to get behind it back into here. Now I'll switch back to the 14mm and we'll put an extension on and get those out. Got a 6-inch extension on with a long 14. That one off. Okay, so we got a smaller extension, little 3-inch for the back. There we go, and the shock fell out itself. So guys, one of the tools we use most often obviously is our little Milwaukee here, but they got these cheap extensions that are really awesome because if you look at it, these are just Harbor Freight specials. They're kind of a wobble. So they give a little bit of room when you can't quite get the angle. They let it move a little bit, and because they let it move a little bit with that tapered edge, you can get to a few more things at a different angle. I recommend getting them. We got the rear coils out. Next thing we're going to do is take the top nut off. So that is a 17mm and a 14mm. 17 on to hold it, 14 to start taking the nut off. It should spin right off. And the next you're going to start taking off the 17, but that's when the spring comes into play. So these are under a good bit of tension. So we're going to use a spring compressor just on the side to be safe. Now I know these are kind of sketchy to most people, but there's not a super amount of tension on this that we're going to have to worry about because it's not like a truck spring. So we're going to tighten it down, take this one off, and then let her loose real quick. Alright guys, so we have the Tein rear coilover here. Now first thing I'm going to mention is that this is a sleeve on shock body. If you look real close down here, it's got a tooth. You want to make sure as you're doing this that the tooth is in there. That's what holds it from spinning and what actually allows you to adjust everything. So make sure that's right. Now, this is how it comes in the box. So we're going to take off the top nut and remove these two spacers because we don't need them. And you want to make sure that this is actually on correctly. So you see how that side is flat? That fits down on the top of the spring, like so. So the next thing we're going to put on is this cup piece. It's going to slide right down over the bracket. And what that does is that keeps everything from really moving around too much. Next we got a rubber bushing that's going on. Then our top hat itself is going to slide down on there. Next is another bushing and another metal top hat. And then finally we can go ahead and put on our nut. Now that's the nut that is included with the coilover set. It is a 14mm, like most things that we've been working on this car, funny enough. So we already got a little bit of preload on here, but we're going to go ahead and tighten this bad boy down until it starts spinning the shock assembly. So you can see here, it starts to spin the top. That means we're good. And we're going to go ahead and put on the locking nut with it. So the last thing we have to do is we're going to set our preload to match the other side. Now we're going to have to adjust this when it's on the car because we want to make sure the car's at the correct ride height. So we're going to put this side by side. We're going to look at it and then we're just going to adjust it up and we're going to spin this bottom area until it matches the top one. So if we put them side by side, we're still a little off. Now that's pretty close. So we're going to go ahead and cinch up the bottom. We're going to use our two coilover wrenches right here, and we're going to cinch it tight. There we go. Now these are relatively the same, and we're going to go put them on the car. Reassembly, guys, is pretty easy. We take the fully assembled rear shock. We're actually going to mount it in the bottom hole first. because we're gonna do it how I would do it if I were doing it completely alone. So we'll get this one lined up, put it in there. So that's on solid. So the next part that we're going to do is we're going to do this one right here. So we're just going to lift up on it and then slide that back through. Make sure you got your nut handy. So just lifting up on it. Slid right through. Tighten her up. Next part, after that's already on, I'm just going to tighten it up real quick. Do it the right way. There we go. So we're just going to throw that back on. And it's raining pretty hard. So that's what that noise is. Okay, now to make this pretty simple, guys, we're just going to kind of line it up. Now, what you're going to do is, at home, you're going to do this with a jack underneath, or you can just have a buddy go up there and you can push it up with your hands. We're going to slide our handy dandy jack under here, and we're just going to slowly raise it until the bolts go in the holes. Now the benefit to you guys doing this at home is that as you're doing this, you got somebody up there to put the nuts on. We're going to grab a ladder and climb up and put it on. The other side, guys, bottom first, then the top bolt. Literally just going to play with them until we get everything in line.
Like butter.
Like butter. Just like Viagra, it's going to help us get it up. All right, now we'll head back up top, put the top bolts on. This will be done. Okay guys, so here you go. We set her down. She's looking pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Last thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go head around and we're gonna measure from the fender to the floor on either side of the car all the way around. We're gonna make sure they're within about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch of each other. We already went ahead on the ladder and I tightened up the bolts for the top. So we're just gonna button it up by putting this back on. All right. We're just gonna pull that out of the way. Put our carpet back up a little bit. There we go, got those back in, drop this in. There, good to go for how it was. I think it looks pretty good. We dropped the car about 2 inches, so I'm pretty happy with it. Like I said, we're gonna go around and measure, check everything, and our next video we will show you how to adjust your coilover ride height. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you later.